I'd like to introduce now Caleb Behn. Caleb is a law student currently working at Woodward and Company, one of Canada's most experienced law firms, working for First Nations. He comes from the West Moberly and Fort Nelson First Nations and was raised all over northern BC and was trained traditionally by his grandparents. Caleb did his undergraduate degree in Prince George in political science. Afterwards, he went home and began working for the West Moberly First Nations as an oil and gas officer, meaning he was responsible for frontline consultation with the Oil and Gas Commission of BC. Basically, his job was fighting the Oil and Gas Commission in industry. He learned a lot about the industry, the players, the business, and issues arising for the land and First Nations as a result. He later took over as a lands manager at the Saulteau First Nation, where he was responsible for all land-related issues for that nation, including mining, oil, and gas. Caleb mainly worked with government and industry to figure out how to minimize the negative consequences of massive resource developments in the area. He quickly became familiar with the BC and federal regulatory environment and the law, which I gather is why he then went to law school, various industries and industrial entities. Caleb will be talking tonight about issues around oil and gas extraction in northeastern BC and the impact of resource development and the ongoing struggles that Indigenous communities are engaged in against the destructive practices of these industries. Caleb.
Don't clap yet. Yeah, I remember what I had to say. But thank you. I'll acknowledge territory. Thanks to Coach Salish Fracking. So I should say a little bit of where I'm from. It should be in the bottom. I'm from Northeast BC. I do go to law school. I work for Woodward and Company. I'm also the chair of the Indigenous Circle at the Canadian Environmental Network. And I'm caught up in all kinds of madness, including a film starting tomorrow. Hit F5. Cheers. Lovely. So, again, acknowledge territory, thanks to the Coach Salish. I'd also like to acknowledge elders in the room, if you're here. Thank you for coming in, all of you, and the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives and the Council of Canadians. I put this symbol here and this symbol here. This is my mother's people, West Moberly First Nation, and this is my father's people. My late Aunt Pat designed this, and it has a lot of significance for me, so that's where I'm from. Those are my people. How does this bad boy work? Here we go. So this is a rough outline of what I'm going to be talking about. I'll talk about Treaty 8, the scope development, and then I'm going to talk about some work I did fighting coal bed methane development. In the end, I failed, just to give you the quick dirty one. I didn't actually win. My people didn't win. We lost. And the pictures that Ben had refer to that territory. But we learned a bit, and that led to my work in the law. And then I'd like to talk a bit about this. I think this is something that all of us have an interest in, and I have some ideas for next step. I'm going to talk a bit about the boreal forest. Also, this gives you an idea of this map's a bit wrong, but of the people and where I'm from. Again, Danita, Zion Cree is my bloodline. You'll note the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin overlies the boreal forest, and that's a major issue I'll speak to in a second. My mother's people are right here. Saulteau, right there. My father's people, right there. Tar Sands over here. I'm going to talk, okay, this is just a rough map of oil and gas activity. Fort Nelson, father's people, West Moberly, mother's people, Saulteau. This is Northeast BC. These are oil and gas development roads. These are facilities. These are things like glycol dehydrators, which produce more benzene than oil patch than anything else. These are wells. And then these are seismic lines. And seismic lines are important because what made these plays work is three-dimensional seismic that allowed them to target the zones within which this gas existed. If you add it all up, this is what my territory looks like. And of course, the map isn't to scale, but this gives you a rough idea of what's happening where I'm from and what's been happening for 50 years. And as Ben pointed out, we're all related in this. So with all due respect, it'd be really nice if people paid attention, because it's really tough for those of us who come from up here. Okay, keep going. These are the total wells drilled in BC. See, it kind of ramps up in the 50s. It's kept going substantially. There's been a slight drop off over here, but we're facing a massive, massive industry. The money that paid for the Olympics, a good chunk of it came from my territory. A third of the power in this room comes from the WC Minute Dam. A good chunk of the gas that's heating this room, Northeast BC. A good chunk of the coal being shipped out of Roberts Bay comes from Northeast BC. And so you get things like this. This is a picture I took in 2008 when I was the lands manager at Saulteau. This is an event, as is quoted by the OGC, outside of Tumbler Ridge, but it's a well that had a failure, and this is about a 200-foot flame burning 60 million cubic feet of gas a day, and it burned for 33 days, I think. They're lucky that these tanks, the diesel tanks, didn't light. A lot of people would have died on the site had they done so. But this is the kind of thing that we see, and I think this is the kind of thing that you guys don't see, to be frank. This is the kind of thing that isn't really common. This, to speak with this project I worked on, which I think we can derive some lessons from, coal bed gas development, imagine this is like Hudson's Hope. This is what's all over that land. This is fracking light. It's been done for a while, but it was the start of these technologies. It's all over it's not all over Northeast BC. The first productive field for coal bed methane development is Northeast BC. It was stopped in a number of other places by a concerted effort. I and my people failed to stop it in my territory. So, Geomet has holdings here. They also have holdings, you'll know, in shale plays. They're a company that was based, I think, in Texas. Yeah, there you go. And they were pretty interesting. They did some interesting work in my territory. This is where I used to work. This is the kind of consultation work that I would have to do. So there's an office of 3 of us. 2 of us had post-secondary degrees. Only 1 of us, myself, is from the territory, from that community. I was processing 2,500 oil and gas OGC, Oil and Gas Commission referrals. A referral would be a document that would come to me, and it would say, we're going to go drill a well. We're going to put in an access road. We're going to do a pipeline. Now, if you can imagine trying to process that many in a year and having to consider what those projects might do to your territory, how each one of them might be that giant flame, you can kind of appreciate how difficult it is for someone, especially without a technical background. I'm a poli-sci major, I'm not a scientist, but I had to learn a whole bunch about how this industry works. The problem was that while I was doing that, we were also processing about 3,000 ILMB referrals. And this all, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the consultation process, how indigenous people are consulted about industrial use of their lands. But what we would get is just a document saying, we're going to do this, you have 10 days to respond. If you have a serious issue, you have 20 days to respond. Holy Jesus. I'm under the spotlight. And in my office, we would have to do this. And so I'd go talk to elders and say, you know, these guys want to go to this place, and I know it's pretty important, I know it's holy, I know Clean Cities, I know my territory really well. I was raised up there, I was privileged to hunt and train there as a child. What should I do? And there were no answers. And the story I'm about to tell you was a failure. We also had 23 active or proposed Environmental Assessment Office, which is BC, or CIA, Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency, processes. Now this is stuff like the Gateway Project. These are major projects, multi-million, occasionally multi-billion-dollar projects. This is big business. And then we had 17 active National Energy Board projects, which are substantial pipelines, interprovincial, that kind of thing. So all of this going on for a community like this, 170 members on reserve, about 400 total, but a long history with this territory here. This is the start, the initial phase of a small play, a small project. This is how these developments get going. This is CBM, a couple little feeder lines, a couple little well pads, and then this is a Spectra transmission line that gets this gas from Northeast BC here. So this is all going on, and this is what we decided to do. Because I realized that the Oil and Gas Commission process would not allow me to effectively engage with this. The way the Oil and Gas Commission process works, which was signed by my chiefs, which is a separate issue, you are compelled to consult. You can't frustrate the consultation process. I mean, I could litigate if I had a lot of money, but with the amount of referrals coming in, choosing to litigate would be very difficult and very difficult for a number of reasons, not the least of which is strategy. You have to choose that one set of facts that really works, that will compel a judge and compel people like you in this room to take action and to take notice. Sadly, that wasn't these facts. So what I did is said, well, okay, law's not going to work. Can't go out there with my shotgun. So I'm going to go talk to the Rainforest Action Network, Dogwood Initiative, and try and find a leverage point. And what we found was the boreal forest through an interesting aspect of the Bank of America corporate policies. And there's a lesson here that I think, again, that we can all learn from.